Hi, good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of Fact Sheet live on ETV, live on Nissim 95.9 and 100.1, also live on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. You're welcome. My name is Samuel Shem. Tonight, I happen to be coming to you from not the usual location, which is the studio, but from the office of a very prominent politician and renowned medical doctor. He's been a part of our democratic process. In fact, a part of the process in shaping in the democracy we are enjoying today. And it's a privilege to be accorded the opportunity to have this one-on-one conversation with him. If you stay with me longer tonight on the show, you'd have an understanding of how we got to this place as a nation because of men like him who believed in our democratic principles and participated in it. Tonight, I'm privileged to be having with me Dr. Edward Mahama, former flag bearer of the PNC, as my guest, for us to talk about our nation, Ghana, where we are with the IMF situation, its impact on the economy, his political party, the PNC, the prospects for the party, especially going into election 2024. Himself, a former ambassador at large. Is he still within politics or is minding his business as a trained doctor? That's our focus of our conversation tonight on Fact Sheet. Do stay with us. We'll be right back. And welcome back. This is Fact Sheet live on ETV, live on Nissim 95.9. And I'd like to have your thoughts even as we have this conversation. Go to Facebook and look for ETV Ghana and share your thoughts with me. Like I said, I'm here with Dr. Edward Mahama. Sir, good evening.
Good
Thanks
evening.
for having us.
Thank you for coming.
I'm hoping you're doing well.
God is great in my life.
You ain't changed. You're still the Dr. Mahama I saw some years back, and I saw when I was even younger. Nothing has changed about you. What's your secret?
My secret is to have Christ in me. I'm a Christian, not a church goer.
Okay.
I want to walk in the steps of Christ. And I always tell people, Christ is in me. He was crucified, died, and buried at 33. So I'm always 33. Even though I just celebrated my 78th birthday Saturday.
Wow, you still look very young. The same Dr. Edward Mahama growing up I used to see. But how are you feeling? How are you doing generally?
Generally, I have to thank God. I'm healthy and I'm engaged in my practice as a medical doctor and have a lovely wife and family. I'm blessed by God. I'm blessed.
Now, your practice as a medical doctor, and we're going to look at it in the light of the economy. How would you describe Ghana today?
Well, Ghana is in difficulties, and everybody knows it. It doesn't have to come from a politician. The common people know it. And I feel that we have more or less disappointed ourselves where we are now. We ought not be here. I remember in 2007 or so, when Ghana was trying to redenominate the cedi. At that time, I was already arguing that you just can't get up one day and slash zeros from your currency and say that my currency is strong. It has to be backed by productivity. And that is one thing I see as a nation. We don't seem to be interested in productivity at all. Individuals, private companies, wherever you go, people do not realize that 24 hours is assigned to all the globe. I hear people talk about the African punctuality or Ghana time. It irritates me to the core because we all have 24 hours given by God. And what you do in your 24 hours determines your position economically, socially, and financially. So basically, that's an area that I feel very, very strongly about. And I think we've lost that desire to be productive. Not that we've lost it. I don't know if we ever had it, but as you came through the clinic, you saw a gate.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the young men that lives around here, and I needed to replace my gate, and I invited him. People who knew him said, don't give him the job. But I said, look, this guy comes to me when he's having problems or brings his children to me. I'll give him the job. Mm. So in the presence of him, myself, and some other people, I asked him, how long will it take you to do the job? Do you understand the job? He said, yes. How long will it take you to do the job? He said, two weeks. So I said, what will you take? What's the cost? He told me. We came in here and I wrote him the check. This was last year. To come and spray it, he hasn't done that yet. The gate is there. So, and I've engaged masons, carpenters, and you give them a job, they should finish it and move on to something else, and you have to follow them. I don't understand it. You know, we're not interested in productivity. That is the reason why we are where we are now, really. You know, I wrote letters to the ministries, some ministries. No one will even respond and acknowledge receipt of the letter. And you have to go and follow and follow and follow. I think our problem is that we must pay attention to the 24 hours God has given everybody and say, what will I do with my 24 hours?
Is this the Ghana you knew growing up as a young man?
No. When I was growing up, especially in secondary school period, even Nigerians wanted to be Ghanaians. Ghana was a very proud country, and we were doing things, you know, improving the country, building Akosombo Dam, building University of Science and Technology, doing things. I think the focus and the developmental agenda we had then, we lost it. And so I'm not surprised that we are where we are.
Would I be right to lay the blame at the doorstep of the politician? Because in the end, it is you, the politicians, that we vote for to lead the country. And you have been a part of the longest democracy we are enjoying. You've been a part of it. Yeah. And that's the Fourth Republic. Are you the ones to be faulted?
Yes, I'll accept the blame and go back to the basics, what I consider to be the problem. In 1992, I campaigned with Dr. Hilary Lemang across this country for people to accept the provisional constitution as it is. The idea was that we wanted to get rid of military government, but we knew that the constitution has some problems with it. Okay. And our hope was that once the military got out of the way, as thinking beings, as citizens who have our rights and responsibilities, that would change the constitution and remove certain things that were there that shouldn't have been there. But 30 years on, we are still operating the constitution. And I've always said this, that Ghanaians go abroad and they succeed. They come back to Ghana and they fail. Why? Because the systems are wrong. The one thing that creates a system is the constitution. So if the constitution we are operating now has defects in it, so defective that it ought to be replaced, and we don't change it, then we'll continue to have this problem. So I think that we need to have a system, and the system starts with a constitution that doesn't have indemnity clauses, a constitution that doesn't ask half of ministers to come from parliament, a constitution that doesn't put the cart before the horse. When, for example, one of the basic provisions in the constitution is that the president-elect, when he appoints or she appoints ministers or certain positions like the IGP, must run it through the Council of State. Well, usually it is after the elections, after the president has come in, then we vote the Council of State. So you are putting the cart before the horse. So there are many, many defective clauses in the Constitution, and I had hopes. In fact, when Professor Mills, then President of Ghana, asked for the constitutional review, I was one of those who appeared before the committee and said, let's change it. Let's change it. The Constitution is not sacrosanct. It's like the Pharisees. They used to tell Jesus that, why are you healing people on the Sabbath? And Jesus told them, Mark chapter 2, verse 27, said, the Sabbath was made for the people. The people are not made for the Sabbath. So the Constitution of Ghana is made for Ghanaians and made by Ghanaians. So if there are things there that are hindering our progress, we should be able to change it.
Do you think that the modern day politician is interested in this whole constitutional review talk, seeing that a lot of the power the Constitution gives is within the hands of the president and the executive? Do you think there's that sincere interest?
Well, as I said, we all campaign, including the president of our nation, that let's take the Constitution as it and then change it. And now, Kufuor came, Mills came, Mahama came, now Akufo-Addo is there. And we haven't done what we said we would do. So, yes, the Constitution for me is the engine of everything. It's the basic structure of the nation.
Okay. The
Constitution decides what we can do, what the president can do, what he cannot do. So I think that when you say politicians, I started by saying that we are all involved in this. All Ghanaians.
Indeed.
All Ghanaians. You know. Yes, we vote them in, so you get what you get. You know. So basically, I have often heard people pointing to politicians. They are Ghanaians. They are from amongst us. You know. So my view is this: that we have to create a system. Our system is defective. For example, the civil service. We inherited it from the colonial government. Nothing has been done to make the civil service more effective than it is now. And it's part of the problem, you know, because whatever the politicians decide, it has to go through the civil servants. Even this corruption that we are talking about, politicians come and politicians go. Civil service is always there. And if they had an understanding to hem in the politicians and not let them run wild with corruption, they could have done that. You know? So at every level, I don't want to share, you know, I want to share the responsibility because we are all Ghanaians. And what happens, you know, to you happens to me. So until I decide that what is happening to you, if it is unfair, I stand up and fight for you. When I'm in that situation, nobody will fight for me.
Well, I just pinched myself to ask a very important question as to whether I am talking to Dr. Edward Mahama, a politician, or I'm talking to Dr. Edward Mahama, a medical doctor. Are you still in active politics? Because for many, we haven't heard you in the media space for a long time, and I think I'm very privileged to be the one to be interviewing you for maybe a period of over more than 2 or 3 years. Are you still in politics?
Dr. Lemar used to tell me that politics is like leprosy. Even if you want to leave it, it doesn't leave you. Why do I say that? You started by asking me about my practice. I'll tell you why I got into politics.
Okay.
When I came back from the United States as a gynecologist, I had no idea or intention to go into politics. But I came back confident that I was properly trained and that I would give the best to Ghanaians. But they were operating a system called cash and carry. And several patients died in my hand because they arrived at the hospital and didn't come with money. So even to set up an IV was a problem. So you see, whether you are a politician or a physician, what happens in the country affects you. And one day, a young girl, about 17 years old, died in my hand that shouldn't have died. And I asked myself, is that what you came to Ghana to do? Because in the US, where I was practicing, mortality was very rare. Another thing was that one night, I was the consultant in charge of the maternity hospital at Kolibu. One night, we had 53 deliveries and 6 women died. All 15 years in America, one patient died as a maternal death, and you know what? The city of Chicago investigated it. The state of Illinois, where Chicago is, investigated it, and the federal government investigated that mortality. Those 6 women who died that night, we went to a morning conference after the duty, and we just looked at them, and that was it. You know? So basically, I asked myself, did you come home to supervise over these deaths? And I said the system was cash and carry. That was contributing a lot to it. So it must change. And so when I ran for president, I campaigned on national health insurance. And today, our mortality, the maternal mortality in Ghana is coming down because people don't have to face that. They have the national health insurance card. They can get immediate treatment when they get to the hospital. So basically, whether you are a politician or not, what happens in the country happens to you. And I became a politician much like David in the Bible killed Goliath. He didn't go to the battlefront to fight. His father sent him to take provisions to his brothers. But he got there and saw something and said, no, this uncircumcised Philistine shouldn't be insulting the armies of God. He stepped forward. So I will say I stepped forward because I thought that we can change Ghana. And that's what I've been involved in trying to do.
Are you active? Are you still actively involved in politics, as in partisan politics?
No.
You're not?
No.
So can I describe you as a retired politician?
No.
How should I describe you?
As a Ghanaian.
As a Ghanaian. That's fair enough.
As a Ghanaian who wants to see Ghana move forward.
You were talking about the healthcare system in the country, and you made mention of the cash and carry system. I remember back in the day, Jerry Rawlings' time, and we were all complaining about the cash and carry system. I want to find out the national health insurance system we are running today, seeing that you are in the field and practice of medicine. Are you satisfied with its operations?
No, and so I've stopped taking it.
You stopped?
Yes.
Why?
Because there was a time when 6 months went by, 9 months, and I hadn't been paid. You know? But the contract I had signed with them said, when you submit your bill, 90 days, if there are no questions with the bill, they'll pay you. And that's one of the things I said, you know, civil servants, they are not politicians. And I signed a contract with you. You are the manager. And you don't even think that you should honor the contract you have signed with me? How does politics come into this? The man managing it must understand that this is what he's supposed to do and do it. They turn around and say politicians, politicians. But that system is managed by technocrats, you know, and people who are so-called experts. It's not the politicians who manage it. So basically, everything you take in Ghana, you see that politics goes into it. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way.
All right. If you just join us, you're welcome to Fact Sheet. I'm having a conversation with Dr. Edward Mahama. We're talking about Ghana, a nation. From all that he's saying, that's still very dear to his heart. We're taking a short breather. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. So do stay with us. And welcome back to Fact Sheet Live on ETV, live on NISIM 95.9 and 100.1, also live on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Would like to have your comments, even as we interact with Dr. Edward Mahama. Doc, so prior to the break, we're talking about the healthcare delivery system. Would you then say that the National Health Insurance Scheme has collapsed if you have unsubscribed from it?
No. There are government hospitals, for example. I had to unsubscribe because I run a private clinic. And when I buy drugs, which are imported and denominated in dollars, and I go back the next time and their prices have changed, and I have to wait for 6 months, 9 months, it was not possible to operate like that. So I had to check out of it because I needed to keep my clinic going. So I won't say it's collapsed because, you know, you probably don't remember him. Honorable Dan Latte.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said it was my program and I sold to President Kufuor for money. And a journalist asked me, is that true that you sold the national? I said, no. But he's right. Because before the national health insurance, if my relatives in Nairobi wanted to go for a hernia operation at the mission hospital, they asked me to send money. But when they got the national health insurance, they have their card, they can go with it. So basically, I'm getting money indirectly from the program being operational. So I hope that whatever happens, we shouldn't collapse it. If we collapse it, then we are nailing a death nail to the coffin of the of healthcare in Ghana.
Let's talk about the economy, because whether you're a politician or you practice your medicine, whatever happens within the economy affects you.
Yeah.
Are you proud of the Ghanaian economy, especially at a time when we are at the IMF, hands behind us, waiting for some $3 billion to come?
No, I'm not proud. And I told you at the beginning that the redenomination of the city was a wrong step. And if I have to blame anything for it, that was it. Because I have always maintained. In fact, at that time, I invited a gentleman from the Bank of Ghana. And I said, how can you get up one day and say that this is what, if you wanted to redenominate the city, increase production of agri-produce, increase production in the mine sector where we are making, then by the virtue of increased productivity, our money will get stronger. But if you just get up and say, well, we have to cut off some zeros, and you do that, what have you done? Nothing. So I think I will say it again. We need to go back to basics. And basics means production, productivity. When we have a government that is interested in productivity and not just meetings and whatever, and can inspire Ghanaians to be productive. That's why I had hoped for the President Akufo-Addo's government, because at the beginning he said we are citizens, not spectators, and he's in a hurry.
Yeah.
So the nation heard the message, but I think we are not living the message. That's why we have a lot of people going to the churches and the mosques. You know, we are very religious, but no godliness at all. You know, we need to change. And we can get a leader who will inspire us to change.
And you think that leader is not President Akufo-Addo?
Well, he's coming to the end of his term. So basically, we can't talk about him now because next year is the election. He's had what, 6 years? Yes, I'm sure we'll get a leader. I believe in the Ghanaian. I believe in the Ghanaian. We can do it, and I'm sure we'll do it.
You had a stint with the NPP as an ambassador at large in the first tenure of His Excellency, the President.
Yeah.
Do you regret associating with them, seeing the outcome of the man a lot of people felt would be the one to turn things around?
I won't say I regret, because that was the first time ever in my life that I got close to government enough to see how it operates. So it was an opportunity, and I thank him for that. But I will say this, that the fact that we are back to the IMF is very, very disappointing to me. I have been against it. And the reason I've been against it is because we've done it before. When Achampong came to power and said he won't pay the debts, IMF, World Bank, they left the country. Some of those who helped him implement the Operation Feed Yourself, they are still alive. And they can tell you that the first 2 years of that program was the best years for Ghana because we had a trade surplus, dollars accumulated because the economy was managed very well. So I think we can do it. We've done it before, we can do it. Nkrumah did it, Achampong did it, we can do it.
I would ask this personal one. As ambassador at large, what did you achieve for Ghana? Seeing that you love Ghana that much, what did you achieve?
Well, I did everything the president asked me to do. So if you want to assess or evaluate me, ask the president.
If I'm not
a student cannot evaluate himself.
But if I'm not prying, what necessarily were you doing as ambassador at large?
Yes, I was doing things like, for example, one of the things, the areas that I failed, and it wasn't because of what we did, is because of the system I'm talking about. We're supposed to, one of the first tasks he gave me was to put Professor Mavis, the Supreme Court judge, yeah, as a member of the International Criminal Court, you know. And the reason she failed to win the election at the UN was because the AU wrote the Foreign Service of Ghana a letter asking us to bring her particulars and saying that when they initially asked, we didn't put her name there. So the letter got to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. A copy was given to our embassy in Ethiopia, and there was no reaction. Nobody said anything. So in the room, I spoke to the AU representative, and he said, you people think because Nkrumah was involved with AU, you owed AU. We wrote you 2 letters. You didn't even respond. AU will not support her. And that's what I'm talking about. That I have had personal experience with this. You write a letter, and the people who should respond to the letter, they don't. Even at that meeting, the then Attorney General instituted a committee to find out why the letter wasn't responded to. So at the end of my tenure as ambassador at large, I wrote a letter thanking the minister for giving me the opportunity and said they should set up an office there in the ministry. So when letters come, that office will look at the letters and say, you, officer, you are supposed to respond to this. You, officer, you are supposed to respond to this. That way, letters won't come and not be reacted to, and we have this situation where we could have gotten a very able judge. She was then at the University of Ghana, you know, and we couldn't, just because somebody didn't bring the letter to the attention of the government. So things like that. So that failure, I felt so bad about it, because that's all it needed for somebody to act, and they didn't act. These are not politicians.
Your credibility as core PNC at some point was in doubt, because some people said that, oh, Dr. Edward Mahama had sold the PNC to the NPP as a result of taking the appointment as ambassador at large. How do you respond to that?
Well, everybody is entitled to his opinion. I have run 5 times to be president of Ghana. And if I hadn't taken this position, people in Ghana would have said, so it's only the presidency you want. I took this position and I acted to the best of my ability. And I think you can interview the president whether I did my job well or not. I did it to the best of my ability. So I'm satisfied for the service I provided there. When PNC people said that, it's because they were trying to pry me not to go. And I always told them, I said, it's a failure if I don't build a PNC up and I go. And I was building it. And because of the kind of politics we play in Ghana, that's why I said that the constitution must be changed. In fact, when Peter Lajeti was the Speaker of Parliament, I went with Dr. Dele and some members of the PNC to say, look, this 4th Republican Constitution, you are a lawyer, a constitution, but you're not practicing it. He said, why? I said, we have 3 seats in Parliament, or 4 seats. In the 1979 Constitution, the Le Mans administration recognized the other political parties in Parliament. Because the Constitution says multi-party democracy. But you, as Speaker, you have made the standing orders to be only majority and minority. It's not multi-party. And I think Samia Nkrumah, she had the problem when she went to Parliament. Where to sit. So the people who are knowledgeable and should have allowed us to practice multi-party democracy are themselves the cause of it.
The fortunes of the PNC seem to have dwindled. A party, I remember back in the day, one of the elections, that PNC polled some 3% of the total votes. The 4 years after, I think it came to 2.5% or so, if I'm correct. PNC's fate, how would you describe it?
It's not where I would have liked it. I'm very sad for PNC. And the same sadness I have for PNC, the same sadness I have for Ghana. Okay. Because the promise of the party, the promise of the country have failed. I don't think we'll go back to the IMF. I didn't think we'll be in this situation. The other day in church, a young lady, that was her second or third visit. She came, she was looking miserable because I read people. So after church, I talked to her. As soon as she began to talk, she was weeping. Her brother had to drop out of school because her father is incapacitated, he's sick. She doesn't have a job. She has another sister. So there are three of them. Even what to get to eat is a problem. And these are not people who are incapacitated. They are people who, young people, who might be actively working and making life for their future, preparations for marrying and having children, and they are weeping because they can't get something to eat. As a father, I felt so bad for the lady, you know, and that's why I'm sad for Ghana.
But the PNC, the alternative, if we were to call it that, because I remember the efforts of the PNC to partner with the CPP and the other Nkrumah's political party, social political party and co. There's only infighting you see in the PNC today. I remember the last time I spoke to Mr. David Apasera, and there's confusion in the party between himself, the chairman, the general secretary, and almost everybody. It's in tatters.
Just like Ghana. Ghana is in trouble. If you don't know that, Ghana is in trouble. Because if you listen to the radio, you know that we have a problem. And that's why I'm saying we should go back and do the right thing. We campaigned to bring in the 1992 Constitution to get rid of the military people. Now the civilians are in charge. When I did a program on Asasi FM, I said it. I said, our president is a constitutional expert. He should lead us to redo this constitution and take out those indemnity clauses, take out those clauses that are causing problems, limit the... And indeed, I have said that when I was running in Volta Region and Kumasi, I said this. I said, let's use our traditional African wisdom. If you're going to cook food, you put 3 stones and put your cooking pot on it. So I said, the way we are going in Ghana, where people are saying, bring me money and I vote for you, we ended up with the 2 parties, and we are running into trouble because they will just come to a tacit agreement among themselves. You have it for 8 years, and we have it for 8 years. That's what is going on. You know, NDC, MPP was talking about corruption. When NDC was there, wait till they come. They'll talk about corruption, just tarnishing the image of one another, but not looking at what the country needs in order to move forward. So what you said is true. PNC was supposed to be the alternative. Or even if I grant you that the Nkrumah's party should come together. You know, when we did that, I mentioned Honorable Danlate earlier on.
Yeah.
He said, he will do. So yes, there is some element of greed and selfishness in individuals within the system. And I even see it in our soccer team, the Black Stars. Somebody is having the ball, he should pass to somebody who can score. No, he wants to hold on to the ball. And then they'll take the ball from him. So PNC is suffering, Ghana is suffering, and we're all suffering.
Now, so far since we started this conversation, I see you're a very religious person. You're quoting the Bible. And so I would wonder what steps you have taken, especially to do with the affairs of the PNC, to unite your front. Virtually, there is a fight between Janet, Mr. Apasera, and your chairman. What steps have you taken to resolve this problem in your party?
You know, I sit here as a medical consultant, and I tell people, if I'm walking down the street of Domi and I see somebody with a tumor from your forehead reaching your neck, your knee, I won't tell you, come, I can remove it. If you think I can remove it, I'll come, I'll remove it. Apasara, the day he came here and I handed him some logistics to go, from that day till now, Apasara hasn't called me or talked to me. This is 2020. So if they have problems and he hasn't come, he was the one who supposedly took over as leader. I'm not going to run there and say, come, I'll help you. Just like I won't go out in the street and say, people, come, I'll help you. Even though some people do it. There's a hospital nearby by me. When people are going, oh, are you going to the hospital? Come, 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 come. I don't do that. So if Apasara had come and said, how can we, then maybe I'll give him my
But you agree with me that the name PNC in modern political context is synonymous to Edward Mahama?
No. Dr. Lemon founded it.
Yes, but in terms of the 30 years that we are talking about, the name that if you asked any modern day youth would be you. Not many people know about Dr. Liman. Many people know Edward Mahama. And so if the ship is sinking and you are telling me that until the person manning the ship does not come to you, the ship should sink. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that if you have a problem, you have to know who can help you and go to that person. IMF didn't come to us. We went to them. After saying we won't go. I lie? We said we won't go, but we went to them. Because we recognize at some point we have a problem, we have to go to somebody who can help. And we went. That's the way life is.
Yes, but as an adult, you know, you would intervene in situations that affect you. There's an Akan adage that goes like, opinion or memory nanka or something. Before now,
I don't speak cheap.
You're cheap. Okay, so let me try. Like a ship is sinking, and you are the father. And so one would expect that, okay, David Apasera has not come to you. Janet has not come to you. But you can make the overture, David and Janet, come, let's sit and talk about this matter. Is that too difficult?
If they will listen, if I told you, he came here, took some logistics from me, and from that day he hasn't talked to me, you think he will listen to me?
But have you tried calling Mr. Apasera?
That's what I'm asking you. If the man hasn't talked to you, you see, I don't offer my advice to people who will not listen. I always say this to young doctors who are specializing. I said, when you're going to choose a consultant, choose the one you will go with his advice. Don't choose somebody and say, no, I don't agree. Because what we are trying to do is share the responsibility. So choose somebody that you trust in him. So that's my life. I have told you, my life is guided, my life as a politician, a gynecologist, a family man, yes, it's guided by the Bible. And I don't deviate from what it advises.
Let's talk about the...
A man went to Jesus and said, tell my brother to share my father's property. He said, who asked me, who made me mediator? So that's what I do.
Interesting submission, but you're welcome if you just join us. I'm having a conversation with Dr. Edward Mahama, and we're talking about varied issues. Look, the Electoral Commission of Ghana, just recently they had sought to make the Ghana card a sole document, but for it being flagged in Parliament. How do you assess them? Do you think they come across neutral enough for you, per the concerns being raised by the major opposition political party?
That's what I'm saying. Ghana, we have lost our identity as Ghanaians. We are either MPP or NDC. That's why since I took the appointment, I've refused to comment on Ghanaian politics. Because whatever you say, somebody will put you in a box. I'm not somebody to be contained in a box. I'm an independent man, think clearly about things, take my issues, my steps, and when I decide something, I do it. So basically, we have polarized Ghana to the point where it's very, very dangerous. And all of us, especially the media.
Yes. Tell me about the media.
For example, the media in many places actually determine the way the country or the nation goes. But in Ghana, the media as the whole nation is either NDC or MPP. I don't know your inclination. To be honest, I don't know much about you.
I'm happy you don't know.
I don't know.
I'm happy you don't know.
But okay. I've been refusing to do interviews because you'll be, no matter what you say, somebody will say, oh, because you got an appointment with the government, you are saying this. So basically, and whatever you say, when I did that interview with the Asase Radio, I said the president should cut down his government and ask us to sacrifice. The headline that came with that interview was, Dr. Mahama says the government is doing very well. So the things that I suggested, as the interviewer extracted the information from me, none of them was important to them. So the media has a role in polarizing this nation, and it should look at itself. Michael Jackson says, if you want to change the world, what should you do? Finish it for me.
Okay.
Look at the man in the mirror.
I don't know the song you're talking
about. You don't know
about, so
Michael Jackson.
I don't know the song.
Oh, okay.
So
okay. He said, if you want to change the world, look at the man in the mirror. That's yourself.
Okay.
You start with yourself. I was earlier, before you got here, I had a meeting with some people. And I said to them, I said, my class, I graduated from Kolebu. We were 56 who graduated. 4 of us are dead. About 6 or 7 of us are in Ghana. The rest are abroad. And I was in Chicago with 3 of my colleagues, same class. In fact, including our class prefects. And I urged them, let's go home and provide quality care to our people. We agreed. We wrote a proposal. And when it came to time to just start, because somebody in Chicago who could have financed it saw my office. He sent people behind me. They came and saw my office in Chicago. And they went and told him, Dr. Mahama won't go. Don't waste your money. He's too comfortable. He said his office, there's a sunroof. And when the fundraiser that we had retained told me this, I was offended. So I came and took this house and turned it into a clinic. And I told my colleagues, let's go home. Let's go home. They said, go, we are coming. The 2, unfortunately, are dead. I'm still here. I'm doing God's work. That's why he has kept me. Because we are classmates. And I'm no better than them. I haven't finished with what God wants me to do. And God wants us to improve our nation. That's why I'm here. So basically, Ghanaians have to build Ghana. And let's stop apportioning blame here and there and build Ghana.
Well, if you just join us, you're welcome. I wish we could continue this conversation for longer hours, but we'll take a short breather. And then when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. So do stay with us. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Fact Sheets live on ETV, live on NISIM 95.9 and 100.1, also live on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. My name is Samuel. I'm here with Dr. Edward Mahama. Doc, prior to the break, I was asking about whether you had confidence in the credibility of the Electoral Commission, especially after the appointment of 3 more individuals that many say the president should not have appointed, seeing that there have been videos and allegations to the fact that these are people who have relationships or have a leaning towards the NPP. Do you think the president should not have made that decision?
Well, in his position, you want to do as much as you can to remove bias and even the suspicion. You know, let me tell you something. I'm a man. I'm a gynecologist. I never examine a woman in here without a nurse. I may not do anything, but she goes out and said, "You've done this." Yeah. How can I deny? So the president ought to make appointments where there is no suspicion. But if he has done that, I wonder whether anybody has asked these gentlemen to interview them. This new role you are going in, this is what people are saying. How are you going to handle it? So that they also then take up a responsibility for themselves. The president has put them there. Can they act like they're supposed to? If they are new Ghanaians, they will act very well. But if they are old Ghanaians, I put out a book in 2000 called The New Ghanaian, A Mandate for Change. Okay. And I said the new Ghanaian is the Ghanaian who puts God first, country second, yourself last. But in Ghana, it's my party first, myself second, my country last. That's why we are having problems.
The sense of patriotism is not there.
No.
Look, recent comments that many have described as inflammatory, one which has to do with Mr. Brian Champon. What's your take on that?
Well, this is not new. You know, we go back to, you know, as I said, previous statements. I think former President John Mahama, Asidun Ketia, they've also made some comments, you know, and if you follow the whole thing, you say it's like tit for tat. This one does something, this one has to do something more than that. It's unfortunate because these are all leaders and they should all be mindful that their words inspire and instigate people to do things. So what he said, I think he should have been more circumspect than that.
Is democracy the path for Ghana?
Yes, a Ghanaian type of democracy. I have argued also elsewhere that when we were making the Constitution, the 1992 Constitution, our experts went to look at the French Constitution, the American Constitution, tried to marry them together, and they didn't even take into account what exists in Ghana. Some of the kingdoms in Ghana, the Ashanti Kingdom, the Nayiri Kingdom of the Man Princes, it's over 800 years. And the Nayiri is the overlord. We get the Nayiri elected by the elders and everybody goes in. But it's a rotational system. So I've often argued that Ghana being a nation of tribes, like Switzerland, if we also have that rotational system that Switzerland is practicing, it may take care of some of the problems and minimize the competition and the danger of intertribal fighting. So if we're going to do that, that's why I said the 1992 Constitution should have made it say that maybe instead of just saying multi-party, say three-party democracy, you know, and you rotate. The presidency will come to from party A, next time from party B, next time from party C, and you can actually do that because in Ghana we have the NPP from the UP, the PNC from the CPP, and you have the NDC. So the three parties are there, and you could have actually put this in our constitution and say we recognize these three parties, and then fund the politicians, so that nobody goes somewhere and gets a lot of money to come and buy the votes, and then we're in trouble. When I was running in 2000, one of my consultants said, look, let's go to America and get some money and come and get this election. You can win. And I said, if we go to America and get the money and come and win, they'll be asking me to do certain things. No, I want to be a slave of Ghanaians, not an American businessman. I won't go. So basically, unless Ghanaians are willing to sacrifice and build the type of democracy they want. You see, French, they are in the Fifth Republic. Maybe we'll get there. Fifth Republic. Which means that this constitution has to be overhauled, and then we put in some elements of our traditional system into our constitution to give us the way forward into the future.
When you mentioned the Nairi, the Boko issue came to mind.
Yes.
When you watch what's happening there,
Yeah.
how do you feel, seeing that you come from that
side? I feel bad about it because basically these are brothers and sisters. You know, all descendants of the Bewa, you know, Honorable Edward Mahama, he's in between the two.
Yeah.
The Kusasis and the Mapresis. So, in fact, in 2004, the guy who stood for PNC in Nairobi was a Kusasi man. And I personally went to Nigeria and said, look, use this man. If this man wins, we can use him to settle the Boko problems. Because we are all one, you know. He did so well, but one of the parties cheated us, stole the elections. Those who did the cheating told me later, and I said, well, why are you telling me now? You stole for a party from the PNC, and they have won. Why are you telling me now? What do you want me to do about it? He said, I regret that I did it. I said, well, God forgive you. I have forgiven you.
In ending our conversation, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you place the Akufo-Addo administration on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, I haven't assessed them completely in that regard.
But they've had a first tenure.
Yes, I know. I know they've had a first tenure. And Ghanaians said they were doing well and put them back. So I let Ghanaians assess them again.
But you're a Ghanaian.
Yes.
And
so my vote is secret. When I vote on that day, it will be secret.
Yes, but the impact of whatever is happening in the country affects you, one, as an individual, affects your medical facility, it affects your family as well. And so you would obviously have an assessment of how the government is doing.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. The government was assessed by the people in 2020, and they were given the mandate again. So the proper assessment of these people, of this current government, comes from the people. Can we be patient? It's just next year. I'll vote. Maybe after I vote, you can come and interview me.
So I would be fair then to say that Dr. Edward Mahama thinks that all is well until we go for an election. Would I be fair to say that?
No, because that's not what I said.
Okay.
I said the assessment of any elected individual lies with the electorate. That's what I'm saying. I offered myself 5 times. They didn't vote me. So what do you want me to say? You felt I couldn't do the job. Fine. I'm back in my practice. I'm not grumbling. But if you are satisfied, then go on voting the way you are going. You are voting. But I believe that any elected official, their proper assessment comes from the people who vote them. You know? And that's why I said, even if the civil service, if we have put criteria for maintaining their positions, productivity, would have weeded out some of them.
Do you see a commitment on the part of this government to fight corruption? Do you see that? A commitment to fight corruption? Do you see that?
Not to the extent that I would have gone. He appointed
a special prosecutor.
Special prosecutor. So on the surface, he's doing something. But I think I would have gone further. But I didn't have the position, so it's
Do you think this government has done well in terms of governing this nation? Would you say that?
Well, the major responsibility of government is to make sure that the social conditions are right. Now, the social conditions are very difficult. And everybody knows that. I don't have to tell them. So basically, to that extent, I'm sure maybe if the president could go back 4 years ago, maybe they would have done some things differently. I don't know what they are telling the IMF, but what they are telling the IMF, if they had done what they are telling the IMF they will do now 4 years ago, we wouldn't be here.
Dr. Edward Mahama, I'm grateful that you gave us the opportunity to have this very rare conversation with you. We're very grateful, sir.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. As I told you, I don't know what came to my mind to accept this one because I've refused everyone since my appointment in 2017.
I'm glad you gave us the
Yes.
opportunity.
So God bless you.
And God bless you too,
Yes.
sir. God bless you too, sir. And on that beautiful note, I'll thank you for being a part of tonight's conversation with Dr. Edward Mahama, an integral part of the entire democratic journey so far, especially for the Fourth Republic. I'm praying that in the end, you and I will contribute our quota to build our nation. I wish you a good evening.